So it's no secret that men and women are disproportionately affected by the impacts of climate change. For example, with the recent cyclone, cases of gender-based violence and sexual abuse have just been a lot, from the living conditions that people have had to go under from the recent cyclone. So I'm particularly passionate about climate literacy to women and adaptation and resilience strategies that help women with climate change, with after natural disasters caused by climate change.
I think that Zimbabwe really needs to focus on developing systems, developing communities that are resilient and that can cope with the kinds of impacts that we're going to see in the future, impacts of drought, impacts of flooding. I work a lot in agriculture, and so I try to work in projects supporting farmers that to be able to adapt to climate change situations.
As an individual, I'm passionate about agroecology, which is using traditional natural methods in farming, which does not harm the ecosystem. So in a way, it curbs the effects of climate change in our country.
We work with small-scale farmers. I think for us, what's important is that our farmers are producing in balance with nature. So we really spend time trying to capacitate our farmers to make sure that we are able to then meet the climate adaptation and climate mitigation commitments that we've made, or that the countries have made on our behalf across the globe. So not just Southern Africa itself, but across the globe.
Creating awareness on climate justice issues with the youth. So as Action Aid, we have a youth program that we are working on, which has supported quite a number of youth from all over Zimbabwe to create awareness and sharing their experiences with regards to climate change issues and promoting climate justice.
Seeing how we can really start having a transition to a more green, sustainable and just economy. And we've got so many of the resources around in order to do that, such as the sun, which is like such the most important, one of the most important elements you can have for renewable energies. And so I think we do have a lot of the resources to be able to use renewable energy, to transition to a green economy. But to get there, we need to change the mindsets of our leaders. I think we're so caught up in petty political party issues. We need to raise awareness amongst Zimbabweans, especially amongst young Zimbabweans, that the future is at risk. And very importantly, we need global campaigns to force rich countries to change the way they're doing things, because they're the biggest polluters.
I would love, and I'm anticipating that they urge the African Development Bank, Green Climate Fund, and other multilateral financial institutions to prioritize and release and upscale climate funding for youth employment and improvement of livelihoods of women who are affected by climate change, as well as improving green livelihoods. So I'm particularly hoping that they push for climate financing and transparent climate financing to developing countries such as Zimbabwe.
Well, the issues in the Zimbabwe delegation position paper are all issues that we in the climate change sector really support. And Zimbabwe has a very good position paper. What people are asking for is that developed countries stick to their emissions targets and make sure that we don't have temperature rises beyond 1.5 degrees. And I think that Zimbabweans and the African delegation need to really scream this message until it gets across, because we have really run out of time now. There is no more time for people to continue dithering about. We need developed countries to commit to these targets. We need them to stop the emissions that are going into the atmosphere, because otherwise there's absolutely no way Zimbabwe can survive. Many parts of the country will become uninhabitable. People will have to be evacuated from large areas of our country. So it is absolutely critical.
It is not a secret that Zimbabwe is one of the countries that's going to be seriously impacted by the impacts of climate change. So I would love to hear Zimbabwe and their friends as they negotiate at COP26, making inroads for more resources under climate financing so that we get money that is required to actually adapt to climate change. However, charity begins at home. We cannot talk about or continue talking about getting climate finance if at home we are not responsible or accountable and transparent enough with the resources that we have. So as we raise our voices towards availability of climate financing for Zimbabwe and other developing countries, I think we should also be at home doing a lot with regards to public finance management issues that in particular are transparency and accountability with regards to how the public finances are managed.
Funding is quite important for me. It's the driver of a lot of things that are going to take place. So for me, it's investments, and I'm looking more for commitment from major donors in terms of investments that will help youth, that are centered at youth as well as women, to then address some of the environmental issues.
I think the sad thing is that is Africa emits only 4% of global carbon emissions. So we're tiny in the bigger scheme of things, but we're the ones who are going to suffer the most from the effects of climate change and from climate breakdown, from rising temperatures and floods to food insecurity. And so I think a key thing that delegations from Africa need to be taken to COP26, that I think activists and civic organizations that have made it out there, I think one of the key things is we need to force change by the rich countries, because the rich countries are the biggest polluters. It's the countries in the global north, and it's the big corporations that are leading to the most of the pollution. And so we need them to agree to real binding change. They need to halve the emissions, carbon emissions over the next decade. Not just saying we'll go net zero in 2050, but really halving emissions over the next decade. And we need real support. There needs to be real support for African countries and countries in the global south to be able to transition to a green economy.
I'm hoping that as time goes on, more women can be equipped on how to use agroecology, and also to get land, and they can also get maybe trainings and also equipment to use, and more information on how best they can save their land for future generations to use.